Your friend texts you that she just got offered a job at $50 an hour. $50 an hour. You do the quick math in your head before you even think about it. Times 40, times 52, that's over $100,000 a year. And your first reaction is pure, uncomplicated jealousy, because $50 an hour sounds like the number where things are supposed to just be fine. No more checking your account before you order takeout. No more flinching at the gas pump. You picture her walking around feeling like she made it. Then, 3 months later, she texts you again. Same job, same $50 an hour. And she's stressed about rent going up, annoyed about her car payment, and complaining that she still can't save the way she thought she would. What happened to the number that was supposed to fix everything? Here's the question running underneath this entire video. If $50 an hour is genuinely a great wage, why does almost nobody making it actually feel like they've arrived anywhere? My name is Nick, and I spend way too much time studying the exact moment a good income stops feeling good, because it turns out almost nobody explains why this keeps happening to people who are, by every objective measure, doing well. If you've ever hit a number on paper that was supposed to feel like freedom and instead just felt like Tuesday, this video is going to explain exactly why. So go ahead and subscribe and drop a like if it helps this make sense. Now, before we get into why $50 an hour doesn't feel like the number your parents' generation talked about, let's talk about where that expectation actually came from. For a long time, a specific hourly number represented made-it money. Somewhere in the cultural memory, $50 an hour sits in that same category as six figures, the number where you're supposed to stop worrying. It's shorthand for success, stability, the version of adulthood where money stops being the main character of your life. And that assumption is exactly the problem, because the number stayed frozen in our heads while the cost of everything...
Let's run some actual math, because this is where things start to wobble. $50 an hour sounds like a flat, simple number, but it never actually lands in your account as $50 an hour. After federal tax, state tax where applicable, and payroll deductions, that $50 an hour often nets somewhere closer to $35 to $38 an hour in real take-home pay, depending on where you live. That's before health insurance premiums come out, before retirement contributions, before anything else gets deducted. The number on the offer letter and the number that actually shows up in your bank account are already living in two different worlds before you've spent a single dollar. And it gets more uncomfortable when you compare it to cost of living instead of just looking at the number in isolation. Rent in most mid-size American cities has climbed dramatically over the past several years, often outpacing wage growth by a wide margin. Groceries, insurance, and childcare have all followed the same pattern. So even though $50 an hour is objectively a strong wage, the basket of things it's supposed to buy has gotten dramatically more expensive at the same time. You're not imagining that the math feels tighter than it should. The math actually is tighter than it should be, and it's not your fault for not seeing that coming. There's also a quieter mechanism working against you here that almost nobody mentions, and it's called bracket creep, or more broadly, the way our entire cost structure is built around marginal increases instead of flat ones. Every time your hourly rate climbs, you don't just cross into a new tax bracket on the portion above the threshold, you also often lose eligibility for things that mattered more than you realized. Certain tax credits phase out. Employer contribution matching sometimes caps out. Even things like subsidized health plans or income-based reductions on things like student loan payments can quietly disappear right as you raise lands. So a jump from $38 an hour to $50 an hour doesn't just get taxed more on the marginal dollars. It can simultaneously strip away support you didn't realize was scaffolding your old budget. People assume a raise is purely additive. In practice, it's addition and subtraction happening at the same time, and the subtraction part almost never makes it into the excited phone call about the new job offer. Now picture someone named Derek. Derek is 29, works as a software support specialist, and just negotiated his way up to $50 an hour after years of grinding through lower-paying jobs. On paper, Derek should feel amazing. He's making more than most of his friends.
This is the trap almost nobody explains, and it has a name: lifestyle creep. As income rises, spending quietly rises right alongside it, almost automatically, without ever feeling like a conscious decision. Derek didn't sit down and decide to spend his entire raise. He just upgraded a few things that felt reasonable given his new number, the same way anyone would. But those small upgrades ate the exact gap between his old income and his new one, so functionally, nothing changed except the size of the numbers on his statements. He's making more, and feeling exactly the same, which is arguably worse than feeling the same while making less, because now there's nowhere left to point the blame except at himself. What makes lifestyle creep so effective at erasing a raise is that none of the individual decisions look reckless. Derek didn't buy a boat. He didn't blow the money on something dramatic he'd regret. He upgraded his apartment by 1 bedroom size. He went from a 5-year-old car lease to a slightly newer one. He started eating out 2 extra times a week because, well, he can afford it now. Every single decision, evaluated on its own, looks completely reasonable for someone at his income level. It's only when you add them all up at the end of the year that you notice the raise essentially vanished into a dozen small, individually justifiable choices. Nobody sat him down and warned him this was happening in real time, because it never looks like a mistake while it's happening. It only looks like a mistake in hindsight, once the math stops adding up the way he expected. And then there's the comparison problem, which makes all of this worse in a way that has nothing to do with actual math. Derek doesn't just compare his current income to his past income. He compares it to his coworker Alex, who somehow seems to be doing better on paper despite making less. Alex still lives with a roommate, drives an old car, and never seems stressed about money, while Derek, making objectively more, feels like he's constantly one bad month away from a problem. The gap isn't in the income, it's in the spending relative to that income. But from the outside, all Derek sees is that someone earning less looks more relaxed than he does, and his brain quietly files that away as evidence that something is wrong with his situation, instead of his spending. This comparison effect gets even stronger.
So does that mean $50 an hour doesn't actually matter? Not even close. Here's where the reframe comes in, and it's the part most people miss because they're too busy feeling disappointed to notice it. $50 an hour, even after lifestyle creep eats part of the gain, still gives you real, measurable optionality that $20 or $30 an hour didn't. It means an unexpected $600 repair is an inconvenience instead of a crisis. It means you can say yes to a friend's trip without spending a week doing anxious math first. It means small emergencies stop being capable of derailing your entire month, even if big lifestyle wins don't feel as dramatic as you expected. The number is real. It's just not doing the specific emotional job you were told it would do. The actual lesson buried in all of this isn't that $50 an hour is a lie or that chasing higher pay is pointless. It's that the number was never going to deliver the feeling by itself. The feeling comes from the gap you deliberately protect between what you earn and what you spend, not from the size of the number on the offer letter. Derek making $50 an hour and saving nothing feels remarkably similar to Derek making $38 an hour and saving nothing. Derek making $50 an hour and consciously keeping his spending where it was at $38 would feel completely different, because that's the version where the raise actually shows up as breathing room instead of just a bigger number that got quietly absorbed. There's a specific move that actually works here, and it's almost embarrassingly simple compared to how complicated people make personal finance sound. The moment a raise lands, before lifestyle creep has a chance to claim it, redirect a fixed chunk of the new money straight into savings or investments automatically, before it ever touches the checking account where daily spending decisions happen. Derek eventually did something close to this. He didn't dramatically slash his budget or swear off every small upgrade forever. He just made sure that a real percentage of every future raise went somewhere he wouldn't casually see it, so the temptation to quietly absorb it into slightly nicer everything never got the chance to compete for his attention in the first place. A few months later, Derek didn't get a second raise. He just stopped upgrading things automatically every time his paycheck grew a little. He kept the older car a while longer. He didn't match every purchase his coworkers made. And slowly, without